Let's go straight to my next guest and talk about, well, the BBC being sued for a whopping $10 billion, not million, $1 billion by Donald Trump. Let's talk to media lawyer Mark Stevens. A very, very good morning to you, Mark.
That's obviously Floridian inflation, Julia, because the original letter before action said 1 billion, then we got to 5, and now we're at 10.
Well, exactly. I understand the actual documents filed in the Florida courts say 5 billion, but we're told it's 5 billion for defamation, 5 billion for this is a violation of Florida's Deceptive and Unfair Trade Practices Act. So what does that mean?
Well, essentially, it's the BBC have deceived the public. And this really goes to the heart of the case. Multiple US judges have noted that President Trump's exhortations to fight, stop the steal, as central to the riot on January the 6th, on the very day that the election was going to be certified. And they say that expressions such as fight and take back our country, combined with urging supporters to walk down Pennsylvania, could be interpreted as directed at inciting
except when he called on his supporters to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue towards the Capitol, he was saying, I can't remember the exact words, but it was in peace. That was cut out and it was spliced on this BBC Panorama documentary to basically, we fight, we fight. There was no way in the world, unless you knew that speech off by heart, you wouldn't know that those sentences had not been said together. That was a direct, absolutely clear and direct attempt to basically skewer what he'd say and to twist what he said. It was. Donald Trump uses this phrase far too much, but it was fake news. Now, Donald Trump lies every other time he opens his mouth. That is, I'm sorry, I think that's a proven matter of fact. That's not Trump derangement syndrome. It doesn't matter that other US courts may have found or judges may have found this or that against Donald Trump. The job of the BBC as our national state broadcaster is to provide facts and to provide politically neutral reporting. That wasn't politically neutral reporting and it wasn't factual. They'd been caught bang to rights.
Can I push back on that a little? Because essentially the law says it's only libel if essentially it's untrue. Yeah. And what the BBC will argue, amongst other things, is that essentially there was an element of directing incitement towards imminent lawful action. Yes, he didn't say those things, but the BBC in essence said that the sting of what he said is that there was a call for action and there was no time for quiet reflection. So it might well be fair comment or a fair characterization.
So the defence will be, we completely made something up, but it was true anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah, and that's the way we lawyers work. But there's a lot of tripwires for President Trump's lawyers between here and there. I mean, they've filed the complaint. They're going to have to serve it on the BBC in the UK. That's a very tricky, technically fraught process. And in fact, in my career, I think I've only had one claim properly served.
What's difficult about it? I mean, you just literally tell it with an envelope, don't you? We've all seen Hollywood movies.
You'd think so, but no, that isn't the case, because, of course, you've got to go through the legal system in America, who have to communicate it to the legal system here. It is very fraught.
Yeah. And the reason he's done it in Florida is because the statute of limitations, basically, it was past the period when you could actually bring a case in the UK, and that's why he's done it in Florida. But part of the big issue there, of course, is that this programme was broadcast in the UK. It wasn't broadcast in America, unless someone had a VPN and was watching it on stream, outside of normal broadcasting, pretending they were in the UK. They wouldn't have been able to see it. But is that going to be an issue?
In that point, you've nailed it almost exactly, because the point is that the burden is on President Trump to show, or his lawyers to show, that it was seen and that people thought the less of him and he suffered substantial harm. And as we know, what he's asking in the lawsuit, which I had the pleasure of reading this morning, is that should be inferred because somebody might have been able to see it if they were a BritBox supplier, provider in Florida, or they might have used a VPN. There's no direct evidence that they did. And I'm not sure that that inference is a safe one. So yeah. I think the BBC will be making motions to dismiss this claim at a very early stage on the grounds there was no publication or no proven publication in Florida. Therefore, the courts don't have jurisdiction. And on top of that, they didn't have what we, or what American lawyers call actual malice, i.e. they deliberately told a falsehood rather than trying to convey the essence, wrongly, but convey the essence of what he said. And let's not forget that this whole case is founded on essentially an untruth, that the election had been stolen. Yeah. And so having that re-examined in the court case, essentially that's going to be put on trial.
And there have been numerous cases on that, and it's been, I mean, categorically it was not stolen. Donald Trump did lose that election fair and square. That said, again, you know, when he won it fair and square in 2016, the Democrats made very similar claims. They didn't threaten insurrection, I get that, but never, they know, you know, if everyone's going to be doing it, they can't blame it, Donald Trump.
This suit, Julia, is a bit like finding Shergar in Soho on a Tuesday. It's not impossible in a metaphysical sense, but practically speaking, you're hunting a highly specific evidential thing. You've got to show falsity, you've got to show harm, you've got to show the proof that the BBC knew it was wrong and that they deliberately published it in Florida. Yeah. And I think the odds lengthen with every
search. Okay, so they've issued a statement, the BBC, in the last 10 minutes or so, saying they will defend this case. They said they're not going to make any further comments on the current legal proceedings. Now, we know that legal cases cost an absolute fortune in the UK. They cost even more in America. I've heard some legal experts saying you're looking at $100 million to fight this case all the way to in the United States, and it could and that would be to win or lose. Now, if there is a payout to Donald Trump, either losing the case and the cost of legal fees, and then his legal fees as well, we are talking huge sums of money, aren't we? Even if it's not $5 billion.
I don't think we're talking that kind of level. No. I mean, if there's a genuine commercial offer on the table, maybe a charitable donation to a charity of Melania's choice or something, then that would be sensible.
Course, maybe.
But
that's the thing.
Be doing this. This is about protecting your right, our right to freedom of expression.
No, this is the thing. I'm sorry. Your freedom of expression does not include making stuff up that people didn't say. And I think the BBC have been caught bang to rights, and that they need to pay for it. Now, what bothers me is that even if they settle it, and people are talking about a lot of these cases in America have been settled for around the 10 million mark, whether that's dollars or pounds, you know, if that, whatever payment they make and whatever costs there are, it's all being paid for by you and me and Tom and everyone listening and watching who has a licence fee required by law if you're watching live television. Now, that's going to irk a lot of people. Whether you, I mean, I'm not a defund the BBC person. I don't go along with that. I don't want the BBC to disappear, but I absolutely want the BBC to be ripped up and started again from the beginning, because I think they are so deeply mired in political bias and I think we need so many heads to roll that we need to kind of rip it up and start again. But you know, a lot of people are going to say, hold on a minute, I'm paying my licence fee. I'm struggling to pay my bills as it is. I'm paying my licence fee for highly paid lawyers to defend an organisation that put out a blatant lie.
Well, that's the question in the case. Was it a blatant lie?
Yes. I don't think that, no.
No, hang on.
No, the question is whether, no, it was a lie. He didn't say what they claimed he said.
Okay, it was not a truthful representation of what he said.
Most people use the word lie.
The question is, was it a correct characterization of what he said? And that, I think, is true.
I'm not Donald Trump's #1 fan. I think he's perfectly fair to bring a case and make a complaint. But the question is, who's going to end up paying? Have enough heads rolled? I mean, 2 senior people going, I want everyone involved in that Panorama to be gone. And I want the people who've been involved in it, I want their money to pay for the cost of this legal suit.
Well, I think we're aligning 2 things. I think we can all agree that the BBC has got problems at the board level and elsewhere.
Not the board level, because there's a Tory on the board. Hasn't got a problem at the board level. It's got a problem from top to bottom.
Well, all right, top to bottom. I'm not going to get into a debate about that. What I am going to say is I don't want my licence fee money going to a meritless claim, and I don't think anyone else does either.
But there's going to be a cost either way. So should the BBC settle?
No, not unless it's a commercial settlement. They have to fight this. They have to stand up for the essential truth that there was no stolen election and that essentially he incited people to go to the Capitol Hill. And that is based on the findings of 8 American courts. OK,
we'll leave it there. Great to talk to you. Always interesting. Mark Stevens, the media lawyer there. Thank you very much indeed. Tom Slater, your reaction to that?
Well, I think we need to get away from this idea that the spirit of what Panorama was saying was true rather than the letter. Because, first of all, people can have different opinions on Trump's role in the January 6th issue. He wasn't found criminally indictable for incitement.
Oh my God, they tried.
Exactly, and so that's obviously a clear-cut distinction. People saying he was kind of morally responsible, that's something people can disagree over, but that's precisely where the public broadcaster shouldn't be being too clear-cut, and also, to be perfectly frank, shouldn't be stitching together 2 bits of a speech in order to make it seem that that was the case.
Do you think I'd still be in a job if I did that?
Well, this is it.
I'm sorry, I would be absolutely sacked for doing that. And any equivalent of that in any commercial broadcaster, you'd be sacked. I'm sorry.
And it's just because it's Donald Trump that people see it differently. And maybe you could say that's fair enough. It was a horrendous day on January the 6th, 2021. But at the same time, we need to uphold standards regardless of who.
And again, just because you don't like Donald Trump means that you can get away with it. Exactly.